Hey friends, how's everybody doing tonight? Hope you're all doing well. Got a special guest with me tonight. This is Nikki, our kitten. She's been with us for, about a week now, week and a half maybe. And she's about 14 weeks old. So she's going to be our guest star here on the channel tonight, I guess. Anyway, I'm not going to do any eBay sales tonight, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how I got started in reselling and also how I got started in pallet flipping. So, people that have known me since like when I was in high school, I'd say, probably know that I've been in retailing for a long time. I started off when I was 15 years old working in retail. I had an after-school job and a summer job working for a somewhat major regional retailer. The name of the company was TG&Y, which stood for Toys, Guns, and Yo-Yos, supposedly, but actually that's not what it stood for. But that's what people think it stood for. They're not in business anymore, but they had about almost 2,000 stores, as I recall, mostly around the southeast of the country, but in other parts of the country too, a few of them. And I started working for them as a stock boy. As a matter of fact, I was the first employee that got hired at TG&Y in Franklinton, Louisiana, where I lived at the time, where I went to high school. I started out before the store ever opened, and we had to set up things for the store. And I learned a lot about retail working for TG&Y, and I've worked for other retailers over the years as well. I got into management with TG&Y when I was in college. There was a year, I think it was around 82, 81, 82, that the economy was really bad and there just were not very many summer jobs. But I had a contact at TG&Y who wanted to hire me in Baton Rouge. I was going to school at LSU in Baton Rouge. And so I got hired there, and it was kind of during the summer it was full-time. And then after that I was working kind of part-time around my school schedule. And ended up getting into management with them. And I was one of the youngest store managers they had ever had. I think I was 21 or 22 when I first became a store manager. And I've worked in other retail positions. I worked for a company called Portland Radio Supply. They're also out of business. I was the sales manager and then the store manager for them. And then in 1991, I became self-employed, and I started doing not really like brick and mortar retail, but it was still too early for e-commerce. But I was selling things through ads in magazines. I created products myself, and I did like desktop publishing, and then I sold those products through magazine ads. That was a good business. And it allowed me to just work at home. And to be honest, since 1991, I have almost exclusively worked at home. And since around, 93 or 94, I've done all of my work online for the most part. I did have one job in the late 90s for a couple of years, but that was more or less kind of my on the side job. My main job was still doing e-commerce and other online things. So when we moved to the Philippines, that was in very early in the year 2000, I got into e-commerce really big time. I had many e-commerce sites. I had one especially that was like a gift shop online. We sold things like flowers, candy, things like teddy bears, like gifts for your girlfriend and wife. And that was quite a big business. We did very well with that, and we were in business since 2002 up until 2019 when we moved here. I still own that website, but I have other plans for it now that I may be implementing, and it's related to my pallet flips business. So anyway, I have always felt that retailing is in my blood. I did learn a lot about retailing from several of the people I worked for over the years. There's one person in particular, his name is James, and if he happens to see this, he'll know who I'm talking about, because we have gotten back in touch over the last few years, and we talk on the phone We do FaceTime sometimes, and it's really nice to be back in touch with James. And I've talked to him about my pallet flips business and my other reselling activity on eBay, and I also sell on Amazon as well, and some other online venues too. But the bulk of my sales is on eBay at this point. So because of my retail experience and then mix that with my e-commerce experience, which is just online retailing, I really have a big foundation in retail and doing business online. So around December of 2018, I consider this person a very good friend, although we've never met in person. We only know each other online. His name is Tom. And if Tom sees this, he'll know who I'm talking about as well. Tom is a great guy, very knowledgeable, smart guy, and I like Tom a lot. Anyway, I think it was December, it may have been November of 2018, Tom had already known that we were going to move back to the United States. Tom lives in California, by the way. And Tom saw something online, and he just thought, this is for Bob. Bob should do this. And to be honest, it was about pallets of customer returns from Amazon. So Tom sent me a link to the video and said, hey, you should check this out. And old Nikki's still doing good here. She's enjoying being petted. Anyway, Tom contacted me. He said, well, she wants down now, so here we go. Tom contacted me. He said, hey, I saw this. This looks like something for you. It was a video about a guy who had bought a pallet of customer returns from Amazon, and I checked it out, and as soon as I saw it, I said, that's what I want to do when I get back to the States. And I did it. When I got back, we got back to the States in January. I didn't buy my first pallet until March. Now, part of that was because we had to get our life set up here. We moved to Indiana. We had never set foot in Indiana before moving here. I had never even thought about coming to Indiana until around December, when a friend that lived here in Logansport, Indiana, contacted me and said, hey, you really should come here and live. And so he made some pretty good arguments. So we did it, Now about, we were coming from where it was 90, 95 degrees every day. And just within a week after we got off the airplane here in Indiana, it was minus 45, 45 below zero. That was the wind chill factor. But, that was almost a 150-degree swing for us. And that was pretty tough. And at that time, I wasn't quite sure how good of a friend it was that had recommended coming here. But no, he's a good friend. And he'll also know who I'm talking about as well. His name is Leroy. So, we had to get our lives set up. We had to find a house to rent. We didn't want to buy right away because, like I say, we had never been to Indiana before. So we wanted to make sure we liked it here before we bought a house. And now that is on our agenda, and we'll be buying a house maybe next year, maybe the year after. We'll just have to see when we find the right place. But so by about March, I was ready to buy my first pallet, and I was excited, but I was also scared because, well, these are things people returned back to Amazon or whoever the pallet came from. That first one was Amazon. And, I'm spending the first pallet, I only spent about, I think including shipping and everything, it was about $320 or $330, I think. But still, that's a chunk of money. It's not a lot of money, but if it turned out that you were just throwing away the money, well, that's a lot of money to throw away. But I did turn that pallet, I flipped it, and I made a profit on it, but it wasn't a very big profit, being my first one. And I've bought many more pallets since then. But I have to say it all goes back to my retail experience combined with my e-commerce experience. I also have a lot of eBay experience. I started selling on eBay in 1996, which I believe was the first year that eBay was in business. I found the website, and I had bought some computer software on there. Now, back in those days, eBay was like the Wild West. It wasn't like it is now that there's a lot of rules. It was Like I say, the Wild West, you could do anything, you could sell anything. And I pretty much know that the software that I bought on eBay was pirated. But that's the way it was back then, That's what, because I got like Microsoft Office, or I don't remember if they actually had a product called Office back in '96, but they had basically an Office suite, and I got that. It was like $25 on eBay, brand new. And, Microsoft Office isn't $25, but it was on that one. So it didn't take long, and I decided I wanted to start selling on eBay, because selling things and retailing, like I say, that was in my blood. So I knew what I wanted to do. I did have a couple of different jobs. I did, like I said, desktop publishing. I would write and self-publish some books and other materials. And at the time, I also had another job, which was full-time, but it was kind of my side gig. I worked in a silicon wafer manufacturing plant. And that was in Vancouver, Washington. So I was doing eBay as well on the side. I mean, I was a busy guy. I had 2 side gigs and a full-time job. And it was really going well. I was making a lot of money. eBay was really doing well for me, but I would go to like surplus stores and find things to buy, and I would negotiate. I remember it must have been around August. I went into this surplus store in Portland, Oregon, and the guy had a whole bunch of Santa Claus mugs. And here it was August, it was hot outside and everything, and I think he had maybe 75 or 100 mugs there, and they were $5 each. I got the owner or manager, I don't remember who he was, but he was the head guy there. And I said, hey, I want to buy these Santa Claus mugs. He said, okay, I'll get somebody to... No, we have to negotiate, I said. And I got him down to where by buying him totally out on the Santa mugs, I got him for 50 cents each. I brought him home in my garage. I had like some storage cabinets in there. I filled up one whole storage cabinet with nothing but Santa mugs, and I put them there until about November. I said, okay, now it's time to sell those on eBay. And what I did was I bought a whole bunch of Hershey Kisses, or I think it was maybe some chocolate Christmas candy, small chocolate. It was either Kisses or Hershey chocolate for Christmas or something. And I filled the mugs with that, and then I put them in the box, so it was kind of like a Santa mug full of chocolate. And I had paid 50 cents, and I don't remember what the candy was. I might have had like 50 cents worth of candy in there. And I sold the mugs for $19.99. I sold out really quickly just because I really made it a nice Christmas item, and it was getting to be Christmas time. So that was a good flip too. But really, the thing that really got me going big time on eBay was I used to want this thing called a Rex, R-E-X. That was kind of an early PDA, or personal digital assistant. You probably remember like the Palm Pilot. Well, this was years before the Palm Pilot. And it was like a credit card sized PDA, and it was made by Rolodex. Well, these things were about $150, and back then $150 was a lot of money for me. I was still fairly young, and I wanted one though, but I just didn't want to spend that much money. So one day, my wife and I were at Costco, and we walked in. The electronics department was right inside the front door, and we walked in, and they had a whole pallet of Rexes there. And I told my wife, I said, man, I've been wanting one of these things. And I looked, and I told her all about the price and everything, $149. She looked, she saw the sign. She said, well, these are $49. And I'm like, what? How could they be $49? I looked, sure enough, $49. And I just said, man, that's really nice, but I'm not going to get one. So we went through, did our Costco shopping, and we went home. We lived about 30 minutes away. We got home, and my wife said, I was really surprised that you didn't buy a Rex today. And I said, well, I just decided not to get one. I'm kind of a cheap guy. I don't like to spend money. I guess a lot of us are like that. But the thing was, my wife and I had just gotten a refund from the IRS for our taxes because this was in April or May, and we had gotten a $5,000 refund, and that was a lot of money for us back then. So my wife said, well, you should buy a few of them and sell them on eBay. Try to sell them on eBay. They're $149 online, and Costco had them for $49. I got thinking, I said, man, why didn't I think about that? Because I usually come up with those kind of ideas, and my wife looks at me like I'm crazy. But I said, I'm going to go back and buy some Rexes for resale then. She said, okay, you go on back. I'll put the Costco groceries away or whatever. And I got thinking on the way back. I said, I've got that $5,000 in the bank. I had just deposited it a couple days before. I said, well, I think they were $49.95 actually. And I'm thinking, well, that's $4,995 if I were to buy 100 of them. Just kept thinking about that. And I got to Costco and I got 2 or 3 of those big carts and I filled them up. I had 100 of those Rexes. And I went up to the checkout, it was $4,995. That was in Oregon. There was no sales tax in Oregon. I think there's still no sales tax there, but I haven't been to Oregon in 20 years, so it's, I'm not 100% sure. So we had a Ford Explorer at the time, and it's kind of a big vehicle, so I loaded up those 100 Rexes. I had the whole back end full. Drove home, walked in the house. My wife says, well, did you get some? I said, oh, yeah, I got some. She says, well, how many did you get? I said, I got 100. I mean, she just about fell over on the floor. She said, well, where'd you get that much money? I said, well, remember, we just got that tax refund. And she's like, oh, yeah, well, I thought we were going to spend that on something else, And she said, what are you going to do if they don't sell? I said, I'm not worried about it. And she was worried about it, though. So I told her, I said, it's Costco. I said, at Costco, you can return anything. Even if I keep them for 3 months and they don't sell, I can get a full refund. It's not going to be a problem at Costco. I'll keep the receipt, even though you really didn't even need it at that time. So I started listing Rexes on eBay, and they started selling within hours. And I had bought 100. That was all the money I had extra. And within, I'd say about 4 days, but this is 25 years ago. Within about 4 or 5 days, I was going back to Costco to buy more. I was getting At first I was getting $99 for them. And so I was doubling my money. It ended up, towards the end, I was only getting $79 for them because other people had caught on to what I was doing. We're doing the same thing. So it got to be kind of a price war. But I made about 4 trips to Costco, and I bought 100 each time that I went. So imagine, I probably spent close to 20 grand on Rexes. And on a lot of those, I doubled my money. So I made a lot of money selling those Rexes. And like I say, at the time, I was working also at the silicon wafer plant. And we would have these morning meetings. I'm sorry, my messenger keeps going off. I get messages. But anyway, we would go to these morning meetings. All of the supervisors there would have meetings in the morning with the management just to plan the production for that day and stuff. And before the meeting, I'd hear other supervisors talking. I was a clean room supervisor there. And they'd be talking about, well, they didn't have money, and, well, it was almost time for rent, or the electricity bill was due, and they were just trying to figure out how they were going to come up with it. And I would always be telling people about my eBay sales, and they'd just laugh at me. They thought it was just a joke, or like I was stupid or something. And here I was making more money from selling on eBay than I was making at the factory there. So one day, the actual closest supervisor to me, we both worked in adjacent areas, and we had desks in the same cubicle. And his name was Ray. I doubt if Ray will be seeing this because I haven't talked to Ray for many, many years. But if he is, hey, Ray, contact me. But anyway, one day Ray was asking me, he said, is it really true about this eBay stuff, what you talk about? I said, yeah, every day I sell stuff. I said, some days I sell $1,500 a day on eBay. And I'm making like half of that off of what I sell. And he just couldn't believe it. Now, Ray, he was a beekeeper. He had like beehives and stuff in his backyard. And it was just a big hobby of his, beekeeping. And Ray knew of this beekeeping shop over in Portland, just 15 minutes from where we worked, something like that. So one day during lunch, Ray said, hey, will you go with me to the bee shop? I said, yeah, why not? Sure. So we went over there, and he's like, look, he said, just tell me if you see anything I can sell on eBay. And I saw a lot of unique things there, and I said, well, it'll probably sell. Just buy one, because some of it was kind of expensive. Just buy one of those and see how it goes. And within a week or so, Ray was hooked on eBay. And it was only about a year later that I moved to the Philippines. So when I left to go to the Philippines, Ray was full bore on eBay. He was still working at the wafer factory, but like me, I think he was making more money on eBay than he was at the factory. But none of the other people that were always hard up for money would ever ask me about it, or they just thought it was stupid, And I still hear that from people today. Even here we are, it's 2019, it'll be 2020 soon. People don't believe you can make money online, or they think it's all a scam or whatever, but works for me. I've been making all of the money that I make online for over 20 years now. And I've been making money online, not all of my income, for about 28 years now. I guess it was in about 91, maybe 92 when I first started making money online. But it's been a good life for me, and it's taught me a lot about retailing, e-tailing, which is electronic retailing or e-commerce. And that's kind of the story of how I got into doing pallet flipping. When I was in the Philippines, I had a very large eBay business. And I had a girl that worked for me there. I hired her when she was still in college. And she stayed with me for many years after that. And her name was Gladys. And Gladys is like my daughter, really. And if Gladys happens to see this video, we do stay in touch. We talk on the phone from time to time. And I just love Gladys. And Gladys became kind of a carbon copy of myself in doing online business and that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, she even started teaching e-commerce at a college in Davao City, Philippines, where I used to live. But she's here in the States now. She lives in New Mexico and works for the federal government. So Gladys is very successful, and Gladys made a big impact on my life. But she'll tell you that I made a big impact on her life. But anyway, so all of that, it just adds up together. Gladys, James, Tom in California, all of these people had some impact on my life, and it just all gelled together and brought me into what I'm doing now. And I not only flip pallets, but I also do other kinds of ways of sourcing product. Like right now, I'm working out a deal with some people that have some car repair manuals locally, and I'm just buying everything they have, and I'll sell those on eBay. So anyway, a lot of people have asked me over the last few days that I've been doing more videos. They've been asking me how I got into this, and I just thought I'd share that with you guys. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's talk. It wasn't much hard information that you can use to get into your own pallet flipping business, but kind of gives you a little background about myself. Everybody have a great day, and I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. I'm sorry, it's not Memorial Day. Hope you have a great Labor Day weekend ahead. I intend to do that myself. Take care.